Hey everyone, this is smpratte, and today we're going to talk about how Pokemon is on hard mode. This is something that I think a lot of us have been feeling, and I'm going to try to put it into words because I think we have truly shifted the culture in the hobby from the past couple years until now. In my opinion, I think 2019 was the end of an era. It was before all the celebrities, before Logan Paul, before NFTs, before crypto infused, vertical, integrated, fractional share, grading companies, startup, Kickstarter, TCGs, before all of that. I think it was truly the end of that organic flow that you had for a long time. Ever since Pokemon went up in the 90s and back down, it moved pretty incrementally upwards. And then in 2020, you had this massive eruption in exposure and growth and everything. And 2020 was very easy if you wanted to sell something. You go to the store, you could flip that ETB, you walk the cards out the closet. It was pretty easy to do. I would say 2020 was easy mode for sellers, where today all that has changed. It's a lot harder today to compete out there. There's more people competing, more supply on the market, but also emotionally, not just for sellers, but also for collectors. And that's really what I want to touch on here is I think there's a lot of people who feel like they are stressed more or go in this roller coaster, this daily or weekly up and down, these high range of emotions that you didn't experience prior to 2020. And I think now, especially with the market settling and a lot of people competing, because I don't think people went anywhere. If anything, the increased supply and competition, it's all still there, but it has made it a lot more competitive than I think we've ever experienced before. So back in 2020, it was easy for sellers, where now, today, I think it's harder for everybody. Today, everybody's an entrepreneur. Everybody's got a hashtag. Everyone's branding. Everyone's doing their own thing. You have more people competing, more supply, more noise, all of it. And another really big one here that I want to talk about is more risk takers. There are people with an endless risk appetite. Like, there are guys who will go take out a loan from PayPal, buy something from Yahoo Japan with zero feedback, no back picture, no financial guarantee, get that card, grade it, and try and flip it to pay back that loan from PayPal. Like, that's a true story that is not unique to one person. There are multiple people in that camp. So that's the level of competition you're dealing with. That type of stuff did not exist years ago, and it definitely didn't exist at the volume it does today. There are so many people who are leveraged in this hobby in a way that they never would have years ago. And of course, it's all choice. Some people, again, have endless risk appetite. Some people, like myself, are a little more cautious, but that's all up to you. That's a pick your poison situation. So the takeaway is these people exist today. There's a variety of risk appetite now in the market. So if you are trying to make money, you are competing with people that have no chill. They will do whatever it takes, take the riskiest purchase, do the riskiest thing to try to make a buck. That's what you're competing against now. So not only is it a supply increase, it's also a level of risk that is unprecedented. And some of these people fail. Some of these people have no problem losing money. Some of it's just for the thrill. I've talked to guys who had gambling problems all the way from a few $1,000s to $1 million lost. True story. And they get into Pokemon because it fills that feeling of gambling, and they don't lose it all. Maybe they lose some. Even if you're talking you lost over $1 million in gambling, like, just imagine even if the market went in half, it's like at least you still have half of it instead of zero. So that's a group of people that's now here, that's now part of the collectible climate. So that's what you're dealing with as a seller. You're competing with people who just have no chill, and they do not care if they lose it all. They will do the most aggressive risk possible, where, years ago, 2019 and prior, that was something you probably would never hear of. So you're dealing with not only more people, more supply, it's more competition, more risk. And then for collectors, I think this is really why I wanted to talk about is it seems counterintuitive, right? Because you're like, more supply, more competition, that's what drive prices down, which it does for a lot of things, for certain set cards or whatever. But I think the more aggressiveness and competition and noise and branding really fragments the community in a way that I personally, even at times, have struggled with. To be honest, I've had people who I've known for over a decade that today all they care about is their own. And ultimately, it's an emotional thing that I'm going to try to talk about here, because I think there's others who feel the same way, where you feel like at any moment someone could just pivot on you, to make that money, to get that hashtag, to do that clout move. That's something you didn't experience back 2016 prior or whatever. It was just a very simple, slow market where everyone knew each other, everyone was low key, and you'd be happy when someone else got something. They'd be happy when I got something. It was definitely more of a community, where today it's more of a hashtag community. Today it's more of, what am I gonna get? It's all about mine. I said it before in the signature video about the toilet paper analogy. I feel like that is definitely part of Pokemon collectible culture, where people don't mind if they buy out all the toilet paper at the store in a frenzy. As long as they get theirs, they don't care if anyone else has theirs. That, I think, is rife right now in the hobby. So not only do you have that aggressiveness and competition on the seller side, but I think for collectors, it is harder to know, like, what thing am I walking into? Is the floor going to fall out beneath me? Is this someone who is a friend? Is this someone who, I can open up and talk about, things I like? And I feel like E4 has been that consistent safe space where it's just a neutral place where people can talk about the hobby. There's people there who collect things I don't collect, and I learn because of them. I've been here 15 years and I learned new things. Like the hollow shifts or the guy who loves Fossil 2000, I latch on to new things I otherwise couldn't because I'm only one person. And that's the beauty of having a connected community, is that you can learn from other people, where I feel like today there's just a lot more hashtags and dollar signs fracturing, those relationships, where again, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it was a lot more tight knit, it just happened naturally, where now you have to be more competitive in trying to maintain that peace of mind, which is a new experience, I think, for a lot of collectors, because before you could just passively do things, pick your pieces along at your own pace, and then 2020 people got priced out overnight. While a lot of this stuff has cooled off, it's cooled off from maybe like 10x or 20x. Some of these cards in 2018-19 are still 10 times greater than they were before 2020, even though they've come down. So therefore, there's people who just wholesale have been priced out of a lot of stuff. So what does that do? That creates resentment. Again, that further fractures that idea of community or working together / figuring things out with one another. That further fractures that, because now you have this frustration that wasn't because of like any one person in particular. I feel like Logan Paul gets a lot. He ends up being the punching bag. He's like the biggest, loudest, whatever, has a ton of views on YouTube or whatever podcast he's doing that I got the invite to that was never fulfilled. But the bottom line is that these people, I think, are looking for that other to put it into, because there is this frustration I think that collectors are feeling now, because there's just so much talk about money, speculation, open mouth. What's the next Charizard? Special delivery Charizard? How much money is it going to be? Let's do the crazy, buy 500 of them from the Pokemon Center and then dump them all online. Like, that's the world we're in now. And, I talked about it in the signature event, which was a microcosm. It was a very unfortunate negative, but it is just one example of many of where we are today. It's more about just doing your own thing by yourself. And I'm someone who's naturally reclusive, as people know. That's why I don't do a lot of partnerships or the Logan Paul podcast or whatever it is, because I'm definitely the Mewtwo in the cave in the grandma house here, being pretty reclusive myself. But at the end of the day, you still need people. People need people. And I think in the hobby, like I see on E4 all the time, I think the hollow shifts, the variants and things like that I learn because it's other people enjoying something that I couldn't do on my own. That's the benefit of having the connectivity there. Touching on the signing event again, because I think it is a microcosm, to just bring it back up one more time. You had people doing things that were just unprecedented, that you never saw before. And I think it's easy. It's a great way to really showcase the changes. Even if you don't understand, like, okay, collector seller differences, like the signing events from 10 years ago, from even 5 years ago. When Arita started doing signings in Ocala, and it was right, like a fresh new thing in 2016-17, completely different from now. Much more strict today, much more aggressive, much more competitive. People weren't cutting in line. People weren't making fake IDs. People weren't ambushing Arita at his hotel. Like, none of that gross, like, FOMO LOMO was happening. Like, we didn't reach that low point, back then. It just was not that crazy. Even the Fukuda sign I remember being at in 2020, there were like low points in the line where like Fukuda could go take a lunch break and things like that. It was just at a much healthier 25-mile-per-hour pace. We're looking outside, enjoying the breeze, enjoying the view. Rather than today, it's like too fast, too furious, Tokyo drifting all the time, like 100 miles per hour. Like, that's the market we're in now. It's definitely on hard mode. It's harder financially for people because you have to buy or buy. Some of these things are, you either have to buy it now or buy, see you later. Some of those hard to get items, you miss those opportunities. Some of them are gone for good. And the other side, that's the emotion. Even within that, people were priced out and missed an opportunity. It hurts. It hurts to see a card or item go by that you're like, what, I can't get that anymore. Maybe I'll go down the graded ladder. Maybe I'll do something, similar. So that's something that not only is happening now, but it's happening at a more fast, aggressive rate than at any point in time. And last but not least, one thing I wanted to talk about within this culture is I think there's a lot of like streaming pseudo Z-list celebrity experience happening now. And if that's your thing, more power to you. Like if you want to pay for someone to open a pack and hear your name on screen, it's your money, your choice, right? That's completely fine. But there is something within that culture that I think is pervasive to where we are today. And I think it definitely is an example of the noise you have to consciously avoid. You have to use energy and time to avoid noise in a way where back in the day, it wasn't like that. It was so small. You didn't have to worry about this entire group of like people from Whatnot or whatever, which by the way, Whatnot is like QVC for Zoomers. It's like a mix between like Home Shopping Network and clout chasing. Like it's not my thing. No offense to anybody in it doing it. It's just not my thing. But that climate or whatever you want to call it has definitely adjusted the culture of not only Pokemon but collectibles. And again, if you like the enjoyment of doing the streamings, more power to you. I get it with the packs. I get the gambler element. Like I mentioned earlier, people who gamble, I get that. But this definitely is shifting what used to be a more nostalgic, pure, innocent / like more straightforward collectible hobby market. I think E4 is still very true to that because I've tried to make it as neutral of a space as possible by rejecting literally every single company trying to get their hands on it. And I think that it's tough. I think what I'm saying here with that analogy is that's one example of what you have to do today. Where back in the day, you could just casually enjoy things. You could just casually pick things up, and you still can. But the hard part is now you have to be more aware and put in more effort on what should I invest my time into? Because there's more noise today to watch or more things, more content out there that you can watch in a lifetime. Or back in 2010, 2015, you could watch it all within a month or a week. So you definitely have to be more aware and more vigilant. So it's not only a financial hard mode, it's an emotional hard mode. And we're all dealing with it, top to bottom. I deal with it, what I mentioned about E4. I deal with sacrificing the short-term gains of people lining my pocket for the long-term peace of mind of people just continuing to able to enjoy and talk about the hobby in a comfortable setting. That even with this channel, I'll be completely honest. Like I've had people that have thrown down some stacks, of not Logan Paul stacks, but definitely some, serious offers that have all been denied because that short-term gain is a long-term cost. And I think a lot of us are having to face that, whether it's in the form of advertisement for your channel or it's in the form of, am I going to go brand and be aggressive and sacrifice some of my friendships and sacrifice some of the relationships I built over time to cut ahead of people to get, that signature, that extra 10 cards signed, or I can make a couple extra $1,000. Is it worth that? Is it worth those couple grand to sacrifice relationships with people? These are the questions and the things we have to deal with today because it is on hard mode. And, tying back in the sellers and the new people here who probably walked it out the closet, who took their WotC collection and walked it out of the closet and flipped it and made money, you can't do it as easy as you could. Because we're all realizing that that's the stuff that was in our closet. I talked about in a previous video. Not many Trophy Kangaskhan's, not many Tropical Winds, not many Unicarps, whatever, that are stuck in the closet. It's a lot of the WotC Hollows, and it's a lot harder to do that now because everybody else is doing it. So that is my rundown on hard mode for Pokemon. Hopefully I captured not only the financial side, but more importantly, the emotional, because it's something that I think we're all dealing with. All of us who've been here prior to 2020 especially are dealing with somewhat of a whiplash and a very quick rubber band effect of highs and lows. And that can happen in days and hours and weeks and months. One other thing I want to say here before we end it is that Pokemon is in a weird place, and hobbies, because they're unregulated, they don't quite fit into like a work setting or a friend setting. So like when you have a confrontation in work, you got HR to shut it down, right? If someone gets the verbal written warning or they're booted. When with friends, you just hash it out, you talk about it. And I think Pokemon used to be more on that side, but right now it's more this nebulous between those 2 points where when something goes wrong, you're not quite friends where you can hash it out all the time and people just out of spite just don't want to do that. And you're also not in a workplace where you have HR to settle it. So you're in this state of like limbo where I think that stress can be very uniquely awful. And I've definitely experienced it. And I know others have, whether it's in the form of a signing event, whether it's in the form of like some deal gone wrong or whatever. And that's something else I want to throw out there that is part of this hard mode evolution that we're all working through in some way or another. So yeah, the finance I think is easier to understand, and I hope the the examples there, the emotional thing, I think that is going to be a challenge for people who just want to collect cards, like who just want to collect Southern Island. They don't care about the UPC behind it. They don't care about the modern stonks behind it. You know, it definitely takes a lot more energy and understanding, and you have to be more vigilant of how to spend your time today, because there's so much noise, so much content that, you know, you could live lifetimes and not watch it all. So anyway, hopefully that does it. It's kind of a statement on society maybe a little bit, but definitely what we're experiencing right now in Pokemon. It's a huge hard mode change. 100% harder for everybody at this point. I definitely feel the emotional thing. And let me know what you guys think. Let me know if this is something you're experiencing, whether it's financial or emotional, because I think it's just what we're going to experience in the market volatility in general, the stocks and inflation. I think it's here to stay for the foreseeable future. So strap in, get the coconut water out, because it's going to be a bumpy ride for the short term. But there it is. Hopefully this video was useful. Definitely a little more on the philosophy side and putting that degree to work. But as usual, you guys know the deal. Let me know how I feel. It's pretty much it. Till next time.